excerpt from some of the radio traffic that day when he lost engine power, and he's talking back and forth to air traffic control saying that, what he's gonna do. And now listen, they're going through the plan. I don't think denial was ever a phase for Sully. I think he went right to deliberation. And he's going through trying to see which airports am I gonna be able to make it to? How can I safely land? They're in the middle, right by New York City. There's not much place, there are not many areas for you to land a plane. So when this guy gets to decisive moment, you're gonna see he makes that decision, and then that's it. All useless chatter, any other, anything that's not necessary to him accomplishing his goal and doing what he's got to do is out. No, his priority is doing what he has to do. It's impressive.
Cactus 1539 hit birds to cross thrust and focus. It's returning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Tower, stopping departure. Got emergency returning. It's 1529. He bird strike. He lost all engine. He lost the thrust in the engine. He's returning immediately.
Cactus 1529. Which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines. He said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529. We can get it, Steve. Do you want to try to land 1913?
We're unable. We may end up in Hudson.
Alright, Cactus 1549. It's going to be less traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Cactus 1549. Runway 4 is available if you want to make less traffic to runway 4.
Idiot. I'm not sure we make any runway. What's over to our right? Anything in New Jersey? Maybe Teterboro?
Okay, yeah, off your right side is Teterboro Airport. Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire, actually, LaGuardia departure guy, emergency inbound. Cactus 1529, turn right 280, you can land runway 1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? Cactus 1549, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up to 2 o'clock in about 7 miles. Eagle Flight 4718, turn left heading 210.
210, 4718. I think he said he was going in the Hudson.
So you'll notice he kind of stopped at that point. He put all his focus on what he had to do, and he did it. Nobody had to spend the night. Actually, I think one person had to spend the night in the hospital, and it was because of hypothermia from the water. So that's a pretty amazing feat that he was able to put a commercial airliner down in the Hudson River and not injure anybody to the point where they actually had to spend the night. Cold water did it. So that is an example of the perfect decisive moment, action-taking procedure. So he blasted right through the denial phase. There was no denial phase for him. Came to the deliberation phase, made his decision about what he needed to do in order to survive and make everybody else on the plane survive. And then once he got to the decisive moment, he acted on it, he focused on it, and he committed to it, and he did it. So I know you guys probably loved hearing my voice, but I'm going to turn it over to Matt now. And I don't think he has a runny nose, so he doesn't sound like I do. And he'll finish it up.
Okay, so we have this presentation kind of laid out in a specific way. First and foremost, we show you what we want you to do. We talk about that avoid, that deny, that defend. That's what we want you to do. Then Paul goes in and talks about why your body's not going to let you do that unless you actually think about it, prepare for it, put some time, maybe some effort into it. Now we're going to kind of go back and look at some active shooter events. We're going to watch some videos of people who were involved in them, and one in particular, and kind of go through and show that avoid, that deny, that defend. Show if that action had been taken, could there have been something different? So for the purposes of our presentation, an active shooter event, it's not a school shooting. That's not how it's defined anymore. An active shooter event is the attempted mass murder of a large amount of people. And that's what our focus is for the purposes of this presentation. Obviously, early on, when these things happened, they were referred to as school shootings, but we find through the studies of all that that's actually not the majority where these events take place. It's not in a school setting. The shooter itself, for these events, there's no specific profile. There's no age restrictions. The research has showed as young as early teens to as old in their early 80s. All right, there's no specific ethnic background. There's no specific economic background. Nothing. There's no profile. They often have an avenger mindset, meaning maybe a former employee felt that they've been wronged, or a family member, anything along those lines of somehow they felt they've been wronged somehow, and this is the action that they're going to now take. And some people broadcast it. People may not pick up on it initially. You may see that someone's maybe potentially acting a little bit strange, a little out of the ordinary, something along those lines. And it's not until afterwards that when people look back on it, yeah, maybe that person was acting a little bit different, a little bit strange. So those are the things we kind of need to take into consideration. The FBI did a study from 2000 to 2014 on these active shooter events. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen here, there's a small yellow dot, which is 0 to 4, the medium size 5 to 9, and the large one 10 plus. It was a 14-year study. Those numbers on the right-hand side, and they're going to auto-populate into the map here. Those numbers indicate the number of people that were shot in these active shooter events. Now, when you're watching the map and you can see it auto-populate on here, there's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no specific area. It just randomly, it appears to be randomly how everything happens. And you can see the increase, obviously, in frequency in a lot of these. Once it goes all the way through, you'll see kind of the upper Midwest doesn't have too many. The reason that the professionals and the statisticians kind of say is the population density there. Potentially that's what leads to that. But I mean, obviously you can see that it's all over. 179 events in 14 years. All right, obviously since then, there's been many, many more. Location, this is why we don't call them school shooters or school shooting, anything along those lines anymore. Because we find that just about 25% of it, or 25% of the occurrences actually happen in a school. The overwhelming majority is commerce. So your mall, maybe industrial facility, something along those lines. Outdoors, you know, obviously that's one that in recent memory with Las Vegas, and then obviously the 10% for other, if you give and take the margin of error. But overwhelmingly now we're seeing it more not in the school setting. You know, we obviously had an incident here in Crossgates Mall, right? Not the school setting, but a mall setting, that commerce setting. The connection of the shooter to that place, 55-45, so nearly 50-50 of no connection. That person maybe never worked here, that person maybe never went to school there, no connection that they can find through these statistical studies or anything along those lines. So for the most part, it's potentially random. We always hear about the ones where someone's associated, a former student or a former employee or something along those lines, but the stats show through their analysis over that 14-year period that there's almost as many that aren't connected that are, as opposed to ones that are. 2009, Fort Hood, Texas. 2015, Chattanooga, Tennessee. As far back as 1986. Everyone's, I'm sure, heard of the term going postal. That's where this came from. Postal employee returned and shot coworkers. Right, so this is not a new thing. These active shooter events are not new. You know, what is this now? 1986, it's 2018. A significant amount of time. These have been happening for a long time. It's just now they're happening more frequently and they're becoming more publicized. So obviously the police response has always been there, and we always evaluate after every situation like that. Studies are done and evaluations are done, and training departments sit down and kind of look at the police response and how things respond, and if we can do something better, we try to do something better. First and foremost, people remember back to Columbine, and Paul talked about it. The police response, what they were trained to do when that happened, was get there, surround the building, call for the SWAT team, and let the SWAT team go in.